If you haven't heard, the brand that makes these boots are the hot new thing. These come from the best small brand manufacturer that you probably haven't tried yet. Of course, if you are in the loop, you know we are talking about Adler football boots. And if you've been paying attention to, say, the Lockhart boot blog or to Noah Kavanagh, which if you're not, you absolutely should be, you'll know that Adler are making some of the best boots on the market right now. We've got the Yatagarsu, which seems to be the very pinnacle of what people want, and that is a full kangaroo leather boot. If you want to see some information on that, then check out the review I did with Lockhart Boot Blog right here in the studio. However, this is Boot Wizard, and we focus on non-leather boots. In this case, the Yamatokyo, a full synthetic leather upper, but built in a classic boot style. This is heritage styling, heritage looks, all the way from the stitching, the way the material feels, the outsole, everything about it screams heritage leather, but it is fully synthetic. But with all that said, I suppose the question is, are they actually any good, and why would you go for the synthetic version over one of the leather options? To answer that, we'll start with the upper, obviously, because that is the main difference, the synthetic element here. And this is a really nice synthetic leather. They haven't tried to do maybe what Nike have done with Fly Touch Plus or what Puma have done with K-Better while trying to create a really modern interpretation of leather. They've just gone for something that looks like leather, feels a bit like leather, but has some of the advantages of not being leather. It's lighter weight, and most importantly, for me at least, is the performance in the wet. It doesn't hold moisture at all, and it doesn't stretch as much as some of its leather counterparts. The shape is more what you see is what you get. Now, you can see that as a good thing or a bad thing. You're not going to get it to mold around the shape of your foot quite as well, but at the same time, you don't have to go through a big break-in period to get that. It's already soft out of the box, and it's going to fit you pretty well, provided you get the right size. We'll quickly touch on sizing here, and you absolutely need to go down half a size in these. It's not a full size like in the Yatagarsu, but a half size is definitely required, otherwise they're going to run too long. With regards to the width, they have a traditional tongue. Of course they do. This is like a classic heritage leather boot, so they're going to have a traditional tongue, which, by the way, I love the stitching on there that says Adler. If you can't see it there, I'll get a better shot of it. But wide feet, you're going to be absolutely fine with this. It's going to give a little bit, and there's already plenty of width through the boot. So we've got a nice lighter weight upper with some good characteristics in more adverse weather. But how's the touch on the ball? Now, as with any synthetic leather, it's not going to mimic leather. Again, I'm going to reference that Yatagarsu and that very thin, incredibly premium leather. This isn't that. It's not going to feel like that. But it definitely does have some of those slightly more padded, slightly more slipper-like characteristics that you would associate with a classic leather boot. I'm not talking about a huge amount of padding here. It's not like they've gone and stuck loads of foam underneath this synthetic leather at all. It's still quite a responsive feeling on the ball, and overall, I do really like it. Now again, if you're looking for something in the line of like a speed boot with a crazy direct touch, it's not going to be that. But if you're looking for something that has classic leather characteristics and feelings without being actually leather, you can't go too far wrong with the upper on this. Now, I mentioned just a second ago the stitching in the Adler, just for the name there. It's obviously aesthetic, but I'm going to take this moment to mention the overall quality of the boot. The stitching, the way everything is laid out, the way everything's put together, this is a really high quality boot. All of Adler's boots are handmade in small batches out of a small factory in Japan, and you can tell that. You can see it. You've got the sole plate stitched onto the upper of the boot. Every element of this really does feel quality. There's not an area of it where I'm like, that feels like it's been made cheaply. The durability on this, I imagine, is going to be incredible. Now, I've used these for, say, 6 hours, 7 hours, something like that, and I have had absolutely zero issues. There's not a hint of sole separation or any kind of damage. There's not even a thread that has been pulled or come undone. If you're looking for quality, you can't really go too far wrong with anything Adler, to be honest, but particularly the Yamatokyo, in my experience, has been absolutely fantastic. Yes, I've gone all Anne Hathaway at the Oscars and had a full outfit change, a little set change. We even had a camera angle change. The joys of having a toddler. You never come out of that toddler parent situation clean. Anyway, back onto the Yamatokyo, and we're going to talk about the sole plate. Now, the sole plate itself is probably the area for me that I dislike the most on this boot, and it's because it's simply too flexible. There's just too much give in that sole plate, especially through this midfoot area. Now, it's not shocking. I've had boots that are much worse. Even the current Nike GX has a lot of flex and bend in that area, and you have to remember that this is a heritage style boot. You don't always get, and very rarely get, a stiffened sole plate through that midfoot area, but I do think it's an area that generally just needs improving, especially considering that I have looked at the Yatagarsu and it has a midfoot shank which stiffens up this whole midfoot area, and the midfoot shank combined with what is on the inside here, which I'll see if I can get a good look at. Just take out the insole there, which is a Carvo insert that runs the whole length of the boot, makes the Yatagarsu really, really responsive, really snappy. It makes it an excellent outsole. Unfortunately, you don't get that same feeling from the Yamatokyo because simply it's just missing the midfoot shank. It's overall just got too much rotation for my liking. Again, with it being a heritage boot, the stud pattern, the actual layout itself, is very traditional. 4 in the back, and then you've almost got that very traditional, almost Adidas style stud pattern in the front with these fairly wide conical studs. These are exactly what I would expect to get on a boot that is of this style, and they're good. But you'll also notice that, if I can show you, they're not that long either. So these should be, and in my opinion would be, pretty damn good for an AG pitch. It's just well refined for that kind of thing. While we are inside the boots, let's talk about insoles. Not something we discuss very often because generally insoles on modern boots are crap. These are a pair of Realign insoles, and these come as an additional option, an alternative, when you buy Adler boots. So they come with a standard insole, and then you can swap them out if you should so choose to this Realign insole, which has an area in the heel just for your foot to sit into, and a more shaped, more focused feeling through the midfoot and the front, and then you get this raised area in here which pushes against the inside of the boot. Overall, for me, this is an absolute no-brainer. You switch out the regular insoles, which are fine, by the way, probably better than some other insoles, and you put in the Realigns. These make a huge difference to the boot, and it's fantastic to see a really good quality insole on a boot that is affordable. The intention of the shape of the Realigns here is to basically hold your foot in place. So when you're striking the ball, the idea is that all of the energy transfers through the ball and you're not losing energy by your foot sliding backwards through the boot. It's a good idea. Apparently the science backs it up, but either way, I just find these more comfortable, more premium, and there's literally no choice for me. It's the Realign insoles all day, and they come with the boots as part of the package for the price that you pay. Talking about price, let's talk about price. That makes sense. These are currently on the Adler website at €111. That is an absolute bargain. They come in black, red and white. Now obviously these are coming from Japan, so take into account the shipping cost, any potential import costs, but €111 for a boot of this quality is impressive, really impressive. It's up to you to decide whether it's a style of boot that you like, but for the price and the quality, it's probably something to consider if you're in that kind of ballpark with the amount of money you've got to spend on a new pair of boots. Another element that I really like on the Yamatokyo is the lockdown. You can see how deep this lacing system runs, and that allows you a lot of adjustability and a lot of really great lockdown all the way through your foot, even with this traditional tongue system. And this U-throat tongue system also wraps far enough into the boot, so I've had very little tongue slippage. But the main thing I want to focus on here is the fact that the lockdown is absolutely fantastic. Not just for a boot of this style, I think overall it just has very good lockdown. I do really enjoy the lace holes run all the way up here, and there is more than enough room to put a runner's loop in here, which allows your foot to be pushed right into the back, into the heel, and give you some really great heel lockdown. The heel itself does have minimal padding. There's not a whole lot in there, but there is plenty for it to be comfortable, and the heel counter definitely runs up nice and high. You get a really good locked in feeling. It's not shallow at all. And I really enjoy this section here. Just give you a really nice amount of comfort around the Achilles. It's the only place where there's padding. It just works really, really nicely. Overall, the heel on this is surprisingly good for a boot at €100. In fact, never mind surprisingly good, it's really excellent. I do also actually quickly want to mention something else I never touch on as well. It just shows the details that go into this boot, is the laces. I don't know how much of interest they're going to be looking at them, but they're actually just a really high quality lace. I just thought I'd bring that up. Again, I never comment on laces, but they're noticeably good. Obviously, what we spoke about earlier with that sole plate being a little too bendy for my liking, the responsiveness is probably an area where the boot could improve. It's not terrible, but it's an area that I'd like to see more. When you combo that kind of bendy sole plate along with the only real structure to the outside of the boot coming from the stitching with a bit from the liner as well, it's not the most responsive boot in the world. If you cut really hard, the boot's not always going to come with you straight away. Do remember, of course, heritage, classic style boot, and it pretty much follows all the terms of boots that are generally more expensive than this in leather in terms of what kind of responsiveness you're going to get, but it's an area that I think could be improved. I'd really love to see an update on this from Adler with a midfoot shank. It would make all the difference to this boot. The break-in time on these is slim to none. They come out of the box very, very soft, but then after you've used them a little bit, they really do start to bed in, and they just start to feel quite lovely. So you get a combination of a soft upper out of the box, very, very minimal break-in time in terms of getting them to a comfortable point. But if you want to get them to like peak usability, just give them a few hours and they'll really start to go in this forefoot area particularly, and it's absolutely lovely. I changed the light in the back to green halfway through the video. I don't think I like it. Let me know down in the comments, green or orange. And if you want to check out that full review of the Adler Yatagarsu with the Lockhart boot blog, click this video right here.